I had put together a set of executive order recommendations for the president. When I handed it to him, and I said, we really need your help disclosing this and getting this problem fixed. And he looked at me, he says, Dr. Greer, how do we disclose that which we have no access to? And my wife and I are at this meeting going, holy crap, this is really a bad situation.
Yeah.
That was my introduction to Through the Looking Glass of mirrors and craziness of the national security state. Ultimately, the thing that was the most hopeful thing at this meeting was his wife, Sue Woolsey, and she had the insight to ask. She said, Dr. Greer, what I don't understand is how are they communicating across the vastness of interstellar distances? Because at the speed of light, it would take millions of years or thousands of years to get a signal from point A to B. And I said, yeah, that's right. And look at our Milky Way galaxy, 100,000 light years across. Now, a light year isn't a measure of time, it's a measure of distance. It's how far a beam of light goes at 186,000 miles per second for a year. Now think about that, 186,000 miles every second for a year. That's one light year. The Milky Way is 100,000 of those. So 1% across the Milky Way galaxy, 1,000 light years, at the speed of light to say, hello, how are you doing, would take 1,000 years to get the signal there, and another 1,000 years to get the signal back.
Right.
That's the time since the birth of Christ, okay? So I said, look, so the speed of light is completely insufficient for any and all interstellar civilizations. Therefore, they are using trans-dimensional physics that involves faster than the speed of light interface with thought, consciousness, and devices. And it goes two ways: technology-assisted consciousness, where your conscious thought is assisted by a technology, and consciousness-assisted technologies, where your mind assists the device. It flows back, it's both directions. And that's what they're using.
Right. Is this likened to quantum entanglement in quantum physics, where, two particles communicate instantaneously, bypassing space and time?
Yes. It's what Einstein called the spooky effect. And when you're dealing with that level of entanglement, take that times infinity when you're dealing with consciousness and thought. So the whole cosmos is this interrelated, interwoven, non-local. And non-local means it's not a straight line in space-time, but it's within each other, and proximity is right there. So we think, oh, the Andromeda galaxy is 2.5 million light years away. At the speed of light, it'd take you 2.5 million years to get there. But within this entangled, interrelated cosmos on a quantum level, it's actually right here. It's right here. Now, what is here? I mean, it gets into this discussion of dimensions and thought and consciousness. But that's what all interstellar civilizations have to have mastered. And so I explained that. And that was actually, to me, what that said to me, because to be honest with you, when she first asked the question, I thought, I better not answer this because I will discredit myself. And this was the fulfillment of what I was told in 1991 by an intelligence officer who'd been involved in this area for decades. And he said, if you tell the truth, it hides itself. It will discredit you because the truth is so much more bizarre than the fiction that's out there on UFOs.
Yeah.
But I think it's time for people to know the truth and the whole truth.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. CIA Director James Woolsey denied the purpose of a dinner party that you had attended. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, actually, it wasn't just a dinner party. That was the cover for a briefing for the CIA Director. And I can prove it from the letters I received from the man who set it up and who hosted it, John Peterson of the Arlington Institute. And the reason this happens, as I often sort of joke, is that in Washington, how do you know they're lying? Their lips are moving.
Yeah.
So their lips are moving. So after he left office, I never talked about this meeting. In fact, less than a year after the meeting, which took place on December 13th, 1993, in the Washington area, I was on Larry King for a special he did that was out at near Area 51. And I didn't speak of it. I didn't speak of it until he was out of office. because I didn't want, I felt that while he was in office, I should give him enough freedom to proceed internally to see if he could get control of the situation. Of course, he didn't. And there's this follow-on story to this. But when he later denied that was the purpose of the meeting, I simply, and he had everyone at the meeting except me and my wife sign this letter. He, the CI director, his wife, the host, John Peterson, and his wife, saying that that wasn't what happened, which of course was calling me a liar. And so I said, well, unfortunately, I keep everything in my archive, and here's the letter setting up the meeting that explicitly says what it's about. So here's the problem. There's so many people who keep covering up and lying and lying and lying, and it's very worrisome. So I just pushed back on it and said, no, this is what happened. It's very matter of fact. I don't make up stories. And luckily I could prove it. So that was that. Now, interestingly, after that meeting, so that's December 93, I ended up, a couple months later having a very close friend of the president, Clinton, come to my home in North Carolina. And he blurts out, he says, well, the president's very, and his people are very supportive of what you've recommended, that secrecy on this be ended. We bring out these technologies that people know we're not alone in the universe within a framework of it being a positive announcement, not something scary. However, his people are convinced that if President Clinton does that, he will end up like Jack Kennedy. And I start laughing because I think, oh, this is a bad John le Carré novel. It's like a bad conspiracy novel. And he says, stop, we're not joking. And he tells me, and this was the follow-up, he says, the president won't do anything about this because it is too dangerous, too risky.